This is Her Buried Lives, written by Katlyn L. Duncan, narrated by Stella Hunter. 7. Jenny.
Hey, are you okay?
The guy's voice sounds far away as I remove myself from the vision of him murdering me in cold blood. He lifts his chin, enough of a movement to see directly into his eyes. There was never a gun. Only a hefty set of keys fills his palm. His gaze flits from anger to curiosity.
I'm sorry, I thought you were... Sometimes local kids try to break into this place. I hope it didn't scare you,
he says.
I'm Scott, by the way.
Even though they look nothing alike, I put 2 and 2 together. Mike Allen is your father?
Yeah.
He places the keys on the counter, a gesture for someone who is comfortable being in this space. We spoke with him yesterday. Apparently he and my mom were friends growing up? Scott inclines his head. His gaze shifts from mine.
They were.
I'm Jenny. He grins, and one dimple presses into his cheek. Up close and without the threat of my imagination, I take him in. The sinister veil lifts away from him. He raises the brim of his hat, revealing a set of dark eyes against his tanned skin. He's younger than I thought. I want to know more about him, but the tendrils of the vision tickle at the base of my neck. You said you had a gun. He wipes a hand over his forehead.
I mean, I have one. Not with me, though. My family enjoys hunting. The threat usually makes the kids scared enough not to come back.
Being in the house with a family member of a man my mother was close with eases the tension in my body. Don't let me interrupt whatever you were doing. Scott massages the back of his neck.
I plan to mow the lawn. I can show you where all the equipment is if you need tools or whatever while you're here.
I chew that over. My mother will return soon, and my exploration of the house will end. But if Mike knows more about my family's history in this place, then the possibility of more information from Scott would be better than her empty room. At least for a while. It's not like I have anything else to do. Scott smirks. His front teeth are crooked, and I can't help smiling back. There's a charm about him that immediately draws me nearer. Maybe it's the thought of finding out more about my family, but when he turns toward the door, I follow as if connected to him by an invisible string. When he first walked through the door, I didn't realize his height. If he stood on his toes, he would bump his head on the frame. He opens the door and moves to the side to let me out first. I'm aware that I'm still dressed in my pajamas. I cross my arms over my chest and scoot by him, careful not to breathe too hard in his direction. The awareness that I hadn't brushed my teeth yet fills my mouth with an uncomfortable heat. I scoot by him, through the space barely big enough for the 2 of us. His body warmth gives off a woodsy scent, as if he washes his clothes in a pile of leaves. Outside, the same scent fills me. There's some shade surrounding the house from the few trees, but the light from the sun stretches across the grass. So you work with your dad? I ask to end the silence between us.
He owns a carpentry business, but around here we do a bit of everything.
It must be nice to work with family.
Sometimes.
He rubs the back of his neck.
Do you know when the house is up for sale? I'm wondering if I'm needed anymore.
Oh, I think before we leave?
Well, it will be good for you to know where everything is, and if you need help along the way, I can give you my phone number.
He eyes my cell phone in my hand. Sure, that would be great. I unlock it and give it to him. My hand aches from the grip I had on it.
We fixed a lot of the issues with the aesthetics of the house. It needs a new coat of paint on the exterior, and the well system is old as hell, but somehow it still works.
He hands the phone back, and we start toward the barn shed again. I don't think we're going to do much. I think my mother wants the house sold as soon as possible. Scott nods. I'm unsure how to proceed with asking about my mother's past in Orehaven, but I can't miss this opportunity. Did Mike talk to you about my family?
Not lately.
He approaches the barn door and grabs the metal combination lock, bringing himself closer. Up close, the barn is even more run down than I originally thought. The door hangs off the structure as if it's held on by a splinter.
I need to fix the hinges on the door. I can get to that this week. It's been on my list of things to do around here.
Once my mother signs all the paperwork and we pack up whatever is left in the house, it's not our problem anymore. Though the better shaped the house, the more money we'll get for it. He removes the lock from the door using a combination.
It's 11-22-32, in case you need it.
He leaves the lock hanging on the hasp and slips inside the darkness. It swallows him until all I hear is his shuffling shoes on the floor. I step inside. Something brushes against my arm and I jerk forward, hearing the crack of the door behind me as we are engulfed in total darkness. A wave of shivers rolls up my arms, and I'm slammed into the memory of the bed in the basement. The thick scent washes over me. I can't identify it, but it leaves a coppery taste on my tongue. A flash of light appears, illuminating half of Scott's face. The corners of his mouth tug down with concern.
Sorry about that. There's a brick by the door to prop it open.
I shove the door and squint against the sudden bright light.
It's next to the hinge. I was waiting for the part to come in. They don't make them that big at the hardware store.
I lift the brick with 2 hands and place it against the door. Dirt clings to my skin, and I rub my hands together to get it off.
You're not used to the dirty work, huh?
His airy tone is teasing, but I need him to know that I can carry my own. We've always lived in apartments. If you need a dishwasher fixed, I'm your gal. He chuckles, a low and hearty sound.
That's good to know. I find it difficult to squeeze into the smaller spaces.
I can imagine. He scoots behind an older-style truck, which takes up the left side of the shed. It's rusted in the wheel wells and cobwebs fill the inside of the cab. Does this still work? Scott wipes a hand over his mouth.
Doubt it. It's been here for years. I don't even know where the key is.
Behind the truck, Scott checks the gas on the riding lawnmower. I walk further inside, inspecting the hints of my family's past. Various tools hang from nails and hooks attached to the wall. As I move closer, I imagine my grandfather working here, repairing furniture, possibly the kitchen table, which looks handcrafted. I drag my fingers over the surface. The tools have seen better days, but nothing that a damp cloth can't clean. With my mother's relationship with my grandfather, I wonder if she will want any of this stuff. At the very least, we could ask Scott if he wants the tools for his father's business. It's the least we could do after he cared for the property for all these years. As I trail Scott toward the back of the barn, I spot a bicycle, which seems to have made its debut appearance in The Wizard of Oz, from right under Miss Gulch. More dangerous and sharper equipment hangs from the back wall. I don't know what any of it is used for, outside of creating shimmering hints of a vision where Scott or I are impaled. I whip away from them and count down. My pulse spikes and I yearn to flee from the space. But what would Scott think? The sound of metal against metal forces my eyes to snap open. Scott sits on the mower as it roars to life. He turns toward me and beckons me closer with one hand. He shouts over the sound of the motor,
"Do you want me to show you how it works?"
The vision persists. I need to leave. I shake my head and attempt to share a friendly smile before leaving the barn. The further I get from the shed, the more I can breathe. The sound from the mower dims, yet the vision persists. The echo of bone against metal creates a tightening in my throat. I attempt to ground myself in the present, thinking of the abrupt conversation with Scott about my family. The moment I reach the kitchen, I fall into a chair and lean on my thighs, breathing hard. I shouldn't have gone out there with him. The urge to know more overpowered my fear of visions, and I'm paying for it now. Scott steers the roaring mower across the lawn as I stave off the impending images. I take a few more breaths for good measure and stand. He won't be able to distract me, and I need to get to work. I double-check the driveway, and Scott's truck is the only vehicle. I glance at my phone. It's only been 15 minutes since we met. 15 minutes I lost when I could have been exploring the house. The basement door beckons me, like finding a hidden present. The opportunity to sneak in where I'm not supposed to elicits another shiver that rolls over my shoulders. My mother made it clear that she doesn't want me down there, but that's the reason I need to be. Something happened to her there, and I must know what it was. I grab the handle and twist, but it doesn't budge. I try again. It won't open. My fingers glide over the knob and down to the lock. The nail next to the door sits naked and lonely. The thought that anyone needs to lock a basement door sinks my stomach. I try to recall where my mother might have put the key. I open all the drawers and cabinets. None of them reveal a hiding place. The realization dawns on me. It's how she was comfortable allowing me to stay in the house. She knows her daughter too well. My phone buzzes from my pocket. A text from Abby fills the screen. Nothing yet. You alive? I'm checking out the house before my mom gets home. We'll call later. Heat burns my cheeks. I imagine Scott's first impression of me, and it brings with it the reminder of the vision of him shooting me. The lawnmower growls toward the front of the house, and I move in that direction. A layer of dust clings to the dining room table. A dutiful daughter would help clean the room for our imminent departure, but the secrets call to me more. I don't open the curtains to get more light into the room. If Scott sees, then he may think I'm spying on him, even though following him around the house is basically the same thing. In the basement, the books called to me. If my mother escaped in them, I wonder if there are any clues in the nook filled with them up here. The windows expose my location, but with the porch overhang, I have a feeling Scott would have to be much closer to see me. I sit on the cushioned bench tucked into the alcove, and particles of dust dance in the air. The bookshelves stretch from floor to ceiling. I read the titles. The spines show worn lines cutting down the length of them. While the past remains with the older leather-bound books, I'm drawn to the paperbacks at eye level, closest to the entrance into the dining room. On top of one stack is an open book, resting on its spine, inviting me to look at it. I pull it from the shelf. There's no bookmark or dog-eared corners, but the book is heavy enough that it rests open without effort. The cover is mildly dusty but otherwise in good condition. The backs of a woman and man holding hands stare up at me. I don't recognize the author, but this isn't a book that would appear in a library of a house where no one lived for years. Someone penciled in the number 1 in the corner of the inside cover. I flip to the copyright page, needing to confirm my suspicion. I release a slow breath as I locate the date. This book was published 4 years ago. I sit again, holding the book in my lap. The mower drones on as I attempt to reconcile the thoughts bouncing around in my head. Scott mentioned that kids had tried to break into the house previously. I close my eyes and imagine the scenario. A house secluded from town, with the small-town gossip. They had to know it was vacant. Even with Scott caring for the property, it wasn't as if he was living here. I flipped the book over in my hands, pressing my finger against the page, securing the place of whoever had left it. It seems unlikely that a teen would break into a house and read a romance novel at her or his leisure. The publication date scratches at my mind. My mother left this house before I was born, and she thought it was vacant for all these years. So how did the book get here? Removing my hands from the pages, the pristine paper reveals the leftover dirt from the doorstop at the barn. I scrub at it with the side of my hand, but it doesn't come off. For once, I can't imagine a scenario. The most logical conclusion is that someone lived or visited here within the last 4 years, either with or without my mother's knowledge. After shoving the book back where I found it, I head into the kitchen to wash my hands. My mind whirs with the possibilities of this place. A reasonable explanation comes to mind. Is it possible that someone rented this house? I can't imagine my mother leaving for as long as she did, and it looks the way it does without more dust and disrepair. It makes sense that if someone stayed here, they would bring newer books with them. If this weren't my family's home, I could see it as a private getaway. Maybe a creative person who needed space for their next project. The moan of the mower halts, and in its place a low hum fills my ears. I peer out the window. Scott leaves the barn, holding a shovel and a duffel bag bursting at the seams. I turn on the sink and discolored water flows out of it. The same thing happened in the bathtub last night. My hands jerk back, and I wait until the water runs clear. The brownish liquid from the initial pull of water swirls in the white sink before disappearing down the drain. We picked up 2 bottles of hand soap from the grocery store the day before, so I allow the water to run while I pick at the plastic around the edge of the pump. I can't locate the perforated edge, so I flick the light switch next to the sink, and a terrible grinding sound fills the air. Water droplets escape from the sink drain in tiny explosions. I press the switch down, and the grinding slows and finally stops. My trembling hands grip the countertop. There are 2 switches on the wall next to the window. I reach over and turn on the one for the light instead of the garbage disposal. Brightness washes over the sink. A glint reflects off whatever is inside the drain. My head blocks the light, and I try several angles to figure out what caused that awful sound. I lift my hand and bring it closer to the drain. My fingers hover over it. I glance at the switch for the disposal. It's off. It's off. I repeat the words as an impending vision crackles around my periphery. Whatever is inside the disposal needs to come out. Wrecking the only modern appliance in this place won't be what I leave behind. Reach in and grab it, then it will be over. I inhale and shove my hand down the drain. My fingers brush against the blade first before dragging against the bottom. The shiny object moves slightly. I try again, yet it evades my touch. I lean closer, shoving even more of my hand down. The shimmering in my vision intensifies, and I stare at the switch. The darker side of me beckons for me to flick it. I don't. But a searing pain races up my arm anyway as the blades come to life. A scream rises in my chest as blood erupts from the drain. 8. Jenny. The back door opens as I recoil from the sink, taking my whole and non-mutilated hand with me. The echo of the sound of torn flesh from the bone fades, mocking and cackling all the way back to the depths of my mind.
Are you okay?
Scott glances between the sink and me. My hand presses against my chest. The thrumming of my heart slams back at it. It's whole, and I'm alive. I'm fine. I think there's something stuck down there. I was just checking it out. Scott's brow furrows.
You screamed.
He must think I'm nuts. I force out a laugh, stepping away from the sink. You startled me. Scott stares at me for a few seconds before he checks the sink. If he realizes I screamed before he came into the room, he doesn't say it. He peers down the drain, and I can't help leaning toward him. The memory of blood appears and disappears each time I blink. This vision sticks longer than usual. A swooping heat sears my skin, and I shuffle to the refrigerator to get away from the blood. My heartbeat throbs in my chest. Do you want water? I ask. I open the door and breathe in the cool air wafting from the pristine space filled with neat rows of water and just enough food to last a few days.
Sure. I'm sorry I scared you. I understand how you might feel. This place always gives me the creeps.
I remove a bottle from the refrigerator. Really? Why? Maybe he can fill me in on a memory of this house. Scott massages the back of his neck. His eyes scrutinize me as if he's assessing whether to trust me.
Because of what happened here.
What happened here? His eyes narrow slightly as if gauging my question. A ghost of an uncomfortable grimace touches his lips.
Your grandfather died in this house.
Oh. He rubs his neck again and clears his throat.
You didn't know?
I shake my head. I know he passed when my mother was young, but in this house? Then she had to grow up here on top of it? No wonder she hates it here.
I shouldn't have said anything.
No, it's fine. Scott probably already thinks I'm crazy. I have to make light of this situation or else it might get back to my mother that I'm scared to be here alone. You don't believe in ghosts, do you? He reaches for the bottle and his hand covers mine.
I don't believe in ghosts per se, but souls leave an imprint on this world, some more than others.
That's an interesting way of looking at it. He opens the water and takes a pull. I peer at the garbage disposal switch once more before leaving that horrific vision behind. When he's done, he screws the cap onto the top.
I need to get going.
Of course. Exploring more of the house creates a popping excitement in my stomach. The after effects of a vision always change, but this time, it's energizing.
I'll come by later this week to check out the disposal. Just don't use it until then, okay?
Okay.
See you later, Jenny.
The water bottle crackles under his firm grip as he turns away to leave the kitchen. I follow him, making sure the back door is closed before hurrying into the living room to watch him depart. With him gone, the energy seems to drain from the house. Without his presence to distract me, the remnants of the vision weigh against my chest. My hands prickle, and the numbness will settle in soon. I debate lying in bed and embracing it to distract me, but my mother will be back soon. I take the stairs 2 at a time and burst into her bedroom. I sift through the front of her bag. The bottle filled with alprazolam is in the outside pocket of her bag, and I fish it out and take one, letting it sit under my tongue for a moment before biting down on it. The chalky taste floods my mouth and I nearly gag. For once, I'm glad she thought ahead. My prescription is no longer refillable, but she's made a habit of bringing them anytime we travel. I don't need them often. Besides, it's only one to take the edge off. It usually needs 10 minutes to work, but the act of taking it calms me slightly. I push into the hallway to the door across from hers, into the one bedroom I haven't explored yet. With a new countdown until her return, there's no hesitation as I turn the handle. My forehead nearly smacks into the wood when the door doesn't open. I apply more force to the knob, but nothing. The physical representation of her distrust strikes me, even though it's always been there. She never explicitly told me not to go into the rooms, but she locked me out of them, including the basement. My mother and I know each other's moves, most of the time, before the other thinks about it. There are more than a few occasions where we can finish each other's sentences. Was this her anticipating what I'll do when she's gone? I check all the doors anyway. When they don't open, I go back into her room and search her bag. It's a useless task. If she locked me out, then she definitely would have the keys with her. I lower myself to the bed and sigh. I lift my phone and scroll my finger across the screen, unlocking it to text Abby. There are several messages from her, but it's the last one which gives me pause. About to jump online. Talk later. A familiar itch pinches at my skin. One that I could easily quell at home with gaming. Even with my laptop, it won't do much without internet. It was a long shot to bring it with me, but I hoped there would be a time where I could get at least some distraction. A wave of euphoria weighs my shoulders down as the pill's effects kick in. I want to sink into the bed and fully immerse myself into this house. I lie down and close my eyes for a moment before they snap open. I almost forgot about the metal piece under my mother's bed. The distance I put between it while I was downstairs and outside with Scott gave my subconscious enough space to realize what it is. It's not a forgotten piece of hardware, but one attached to a secret. At least that's the hope. I reach under the bed until the tips of my fingers brush over the ring. I strain to grip it enough to lift it an inch before it slaps back into place. I try 2 more times with the same result. It can't be that heavy, and I need more room to open whatever lies underneath. I shove off the floor and position myself at the foot of the bed. The effects of the pill continue to wash over me in waves, and I almost regret taking it. I grip the corner of the bed and lift it slightly, pivoting it out of position. A grinding sound makes me wince. A scratch blemishes the floor at the other end of the bed. It's about 6 inches long and wasn't there when we arrived. If she asks me about it, I won't lie, but I have a more important task. The edge of a hatch appears, along with several dust bunnies rolling from their hiding spots like tumbleweeds. After moving the bed, I lower it to the floor and crawl over to the ring. I trace my fingers around deep cuts in the wood. My heart thrums in my chest, but more from excitement than fear. It's like the sensation of locating the living space in the basement. The unraveling of decades of secrets fills my mind with possibilities. I open the hatch and ease it to the ground. Dust clings to my nose and throat, and I cough into my fist as I inspect the opening. Beams separate sections of the space, and my heart deflates as I find nothing inside. I rest on my knees, staring at the hole. There has to be a reason for it. I scan the room. My mother hadn't mentioned whose rooms we were staying in. Was this room cleared out after everyone died, including this space? Especially with my mother's traumatic childhood, I can't imagine her wanting to sleep in the room where she grew up. Did that mean she stuck me in my aunt's room? Were the other rooms locked to keep her memories away and to continue to keep me from her past? I grab my phone and turn the flashlight on. The beam barely cuts through the brightness of the room, but illuminates the void under the floor. I drop the phone inside the hole, scanning the space with precise motions as not to miss anything. Floating remnants of cobwebs stick to my skin. With each swipe of the space, my heart sinks even more into my chest. This was a waste of time. My mother won't overlook the scratch on the floor, and she'll know I dug for information in her absence. My skin prickles, and I tug at the fabric of my tank top, desperate for cooler air. I should shower while she's gone, so at least she won't think I was a complete snoop. The phone tumbles from my hand. A plume of dust billows out, and I suck in a breath and a mouthful of particles. I cough as I reach after it. It fell closer to the edge of the hole, down a pocket just big enough to fit the slim phone. The beam of light is the only indicator of its position as it blends into the dark wood. I squeeze my hand in, feeling around for the edge. I let out a breath, and another dust cloud rushes from the hiding spot. A thin shadow scurries across the bottom of the hatch, and I jump back. The centipede continues on its way while a wash of goosebumps coats my entire body. I wait a few seconds, expecting more where that came from. I count to 10 before I grab the phone. The beam illuminates the space under the floor. I turn off the flashlight and glance at the hatch one more time. I stare at it, unable to take my eyes away from what my clumsiness revealed. Where my phone had hit the wood and the movement of the dust created a sliver of newness in the depths below. I reach in and remove a thin piece of cardboard. It's almost the same shade as the wood underneath, but the debris gave the illusion that there's nothing inside. That's a lie, though. There's something in there. The familiar hum of an engine fills my ears. My time is up. I jump to my feet and head for the window. The car speeds up the driveway as if she knows what I've done. I have less than 5 minutes until she discovers what I've been up to. I grab the small book from the hiding space. It's thin with a soft but cracked leather cover. I place it on the floor away from the bed and close the hatch. My breathing slows as I move the bed back where it belongs. The time I take now will hopefully prevent her from knowing that I found a secret under her bed. I spot the scratch. It's hidden under the shadow of the quilt in the side table. Maybe she won't notice. The car door slams outside, and I check the room one more time, making sure everything is in its place. Then I close the door behind me. I rush into the bathroom and turn on the shower. Guilt adds to the weight of the book, but I don't have time to read it now. I shove it in the corner and toss my clothes on top of it. I'm halfway into the tub when 3 knocks strike the door. "Yeah?" I call a little too loudly. The door opens a crack and I cover my naked body with the curtain. "Jenny, I'm home. I didn't want to startle you." "Oh, okay. I'm going to make some lunch." The door closes and I ease under the spray of water. It's not warm yet, but it's enough to cover what I've done. I recall how I left the room, referencing the last look. I doubt she went in there first, yet visions of her bursting into the bathroom, uncovering the secret book, and staring at me with disapproving cold eyes crowd my mind. A vision of her burning it in the fireplace pulses through me. I charge across the room as the pages curl into each other, blackening with each passing second, keeping their secrets. The epic argument between us is worse than any of the few ones in real life. I scream at her about keeping me away from our past. She tugs at her sleeves, crying and desperate for me to stop. It feels like hours. The rippling effects from the one thing I've found here wash over me. The despair and loss of any explanation of my past drains me. When I finally snap out of it, I choke on cool water. I turn the shower off and my teeth chatter as I reach for a towel. Sometimes even the visions without physical violence strike me more than the bloody ones. I dry off, trying to shove away the imagined fight and quell the shivers racking my body. I scoop up my clothes with the book concealed between them, then leave the bathroom, depositing everything in my room. I don't have time to look through what I've found, and the weight of uncovering a secret nearly kills me. When I enter the kitchen, I spot 2 ham and cheese sandwiches next to each other on the table. My mother's back is to me as she opens a bag of chips. I steel myself and shake off the guilt of sneaking around on her. I sit at the chair closest to the door and try to control the waver in my voice. "How was the meeting?" She drops the bag of chips between us before sitting. She lets out a sigh. "It wasn't the news I expected." "What do you mean?" She rubs a hand over her face. "I have to make a trip to get some old paperwork at a different lawyer's office a few towns over. It's how we can get all of this over with." The thought of getting more time alone in the house creates a flurry in my gut. It's short-lived as I realize she won't allow me to stay here by myself again. "Are you okay being here without me?" she asks. I hold back any surprise. "When do you have to go?" "Tomorrow." A full day alone. I try to appear as if I'm not doing backflips on the inside. "I can come with you." I drop my hands to my lap, crossing my fingers. She licks her lips, pulling them together until they disappear. "I was hoping you could finish sorting through some boxes from the attic. I just want to be done with this." "What boxes?" "The locked rooms upstairs apparently hold more than I thought." "That's our task this afternoon, to bring down those boxes and clear them out. I've already hired Mike's son to bring them out of here the day after tomorrow." "Scott." I bite into my sandwich. "He stopped by here earlier and mowed the lawn. Did you know they were taking care of this place?" I had a feeling, even though Mike wasn't explicit about it. If she wasn't in contact with him, what made them work here? Do we need to pay them? The estate covers it. Walter is paid through a trust. She waves a dismissive hand. It's complicated, but covered. Even without her taking a massive bite of her sandwich, it's obvious she's getting to a breaking point with the conversation. I change the subject. There's something stuck in the garbage disposal. She twists in her chair to look at it. "Why were you using it?" "It was an accident. I turned on the wrong switch. Scott said he was going to fix it." "That was nice of him." She turns back to her food. We fall into a lull, and I'm satisfied enough with her allowing me to explore what's left in the house. Maybe she's not holding all the secrets I thought. 9. Then. The way children play and imagine displays how we're born innocent. It's only the sins and influence of our caregivers that spin us in the wrong direction. My mind wanders, as it does, while she lies on her stomach, staring at the corner of the room. Nothing is there, at least not physically. Her eyes dart from side to side as her imagination reveals a movie. Maybe she sees an imaginary friend. With her distracted, I fall into the memory of my experience in the woods. The overwhelming silence of the hidden shelter. The claustrophobic pressure. An all-consuming worry that you'll die there. Everything seems different when you think you're going to die. You learn to understand the important things in life. Good things can come out of the bad, too. Out there are no distractions to impede the thinking process. By the end of this, you'll know what you have to do to give us a good life, to give her a good life. I fall into your role, going through the bedtime routine. Slipping into your mindset is easy. I've been doing it for years. I remind her I'm as important as you, and leaving this place isn't an option. I'm rooted in her life as much as you are. We sing the toothbrush song. Her smile and laugh fuel my soul. There's no chance I would allow either of you to exit my life. Staring into her eyes, I renew my mission. After I finish not one but 2 stories and sing her a fractured version of your lullaby, I kiss her forehead the way you do. Then I sweep my fingers across her skin, moving the soft strands off her face. Her heavy eyes peer up at me before a yawn overcomes her. She asks for you. The same sensation when I left you earlier hovers over me. I don't feel like others do. Both of you know that, and still accept me. I reassure her you're away for a few days with friends. Mommies need a break sometimes. She believes it, but she misses you. I miss you. As I leave the room, she rolls over and I wait for the hand to come up and wiggle her fingers. It's a bedtime move that she's done since she could consciously move her hands on her own. The signal propels me from the room. The babysitter left the house a mess, claiming her only job was to watch her. I don't mind cleaning up. It's one way I process my day. My mind flips on autopilot as I move through the space, tidying the living room before moving on to the kitchen. The sitter mentioned they baked cookies. The scent of them enveloped me when I returned home, but the scars of the mess cut across every surface of the kitchen. While washing the dishes, I glance out the window. My warped reflection glares back at me. The shapes meld together until I see you. You're not home, but our shared experiences give me insight into your thoughts. You'll come out the other side of this a more committed member of this family and never regret staying here. I'm the one who will keep the secret of your commitment. That weight will carry the same way it did for Father. He was physically stronger than me, but I won't treat you the way he did me. I shiver at the thought. There are times I don't think of others' thought processes in the way I should. I blame Father, but unlike him, I'm always trying to improve. I make a mental note to reassure you I won't harm you. That fear won't allow the process to benefit me. The urge to study the human mind forces my hand to move faster over the counter. I've done enough thinking. I need to study you. My methods have worked well over the years on top of mimicking you. It's a trick I learned on my own, a survival mechanism. When the kitchen is clean, I lock all the doors, even though the crime rate in this town has been non-existent for years. At least, since the last time I protected our family.